beautiful gems, welcome to Heartstrings Cafe. I hope you guys are doing good, and we will have another clip studio tutorial ready for you. Now for this tutorial, I do have my iPad set up, so please don't be surprised if my workspace is different from what I had on the other tutorial. Yeah, this is set up for my own convenience when making my own webtoon. Okay, so let's go ahead and change scene. So for this tutorial, I wanted to focus on layers as well as tool properties and the subtool window. Please don't be surprised, my setup again is different from what I have on my PC. This is for my iPad, so I set it up for my own convenience creating my webtoon. So yeah, it is a bit different. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the tools. Now, since my workspace is different, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the pen tools that are usually on Clip Studio or are actually provided on Clip Studio if you ever download it from scratch without adding your own thing on the software. So for this one, I already have a pre-made reference layer for you guys for testing out, but I'll add another layer for this. So on my previous video, I said that each brushes would look differently, especially if you have a sensitive, pressure sensitive pen with you. Since I'm using my iPad, you will notice that if I would draw with G Pen, this is what it looks like. Let's change that to black so you guys can see it better. But yeah, there you go. So this is what it looks like for the G Pen. If I'm going to change it to the real G Pen with the same pressure, that's how it would look like. If I'm using the texture pen, let's go ahead and increase the brush size. That's how it would look like. As you can see, there is a really nice texture difference between the brushes that I have used. That's part of the fun thing about Clip Studio. They also have different brushes that you can download on the asset store. We can talk about that in another video, but yes, they even offer ones that looks like this, which is basically like, you know, whenever you paint on paper. Okay, and this one is the thick gouache brush. Okay, if you want oil pen, there you go. Let's see if I lighten the texture, you will see as if we are drawing on paper with that texture. That's really, really nice. Now, I'm going to delete this one, okay, because I wanted to talk about the tool property. Why? Well, different brushes will have different properties. You can actually create your own brush by clicking on this wrench icon and it will pop up the subtool detail. There are several options that you can use from the size, what is the ink that you will be using. You can choose the brush shape as well. You can even upload your own brush shape if you want to. So it is quite fun if you are wanting to create your own brush. I personally don't really like creating my own brushes since all I need to do is go ahead and click on the asset store and it does provide me a lot of free brushes. But if the asset store doesn't have what you need, you can always create your own. So that's another tutorial, but let's talk about the basic things that you would normally see on the tool property bar. So, for example, if I'm using my real G Pen, I will see this option. If I'm going to click on the G Pen, it does give me the same option, but other brushes, if you can see, has different options as well. So you can customize this to whatever it is that you want. But the most common ones that you will use, especially if you're just into illustration, okay, is simple illustration is the first of all the brush size. You can change the brush size here. So if I want to go bigger, I'll just drag it over to the right and then there you go. If I wanted to go make something super small, I drag it to the left, which this is the result. Now I also have the brush size window ready, preset sizes, so I don't have to click on left and right. I can just click on this and I get the size that I want. And yes, it is pressure sensitive, so even if I chose the 90 size, if I go really, really, really light, it still gives me that really thin line. But if I put on the sensitivity or the pressure, it gives me thicker lines. Okay, next is the opacity. Opacity is basically you changing the transparency of the brush. If it goes to 100, of course, the opacity, it means that the ink will be there you go, like full solid color. If we go change this to about 56, the transparency is a bit more see-through. And yes, you'll see the brush underneath it, like so. If I go lower, then of course it'll give me a lighter color. Okay, so let's go back to 100 for now. Next thing is I want to talk about the stabilization tool. Stabilization will help you stabilize your hand, especially if you have jittery hands. I believe Photoshop users have the Nesco. I forgot what it's called, but it has starts with the letter N to help them to draw, especially the older versions of Photoshop. But here, for example, if I turn this off, so I put it on 0, this is what my handwriting would or drawing would look like. And it is a bit shaky. So there. Now if I put on the stabilization just a tiny bit, let's go for 7. It gives me a bit more of a control. Now if I would go for, let's say 53 or 49, it gives me a lot more control over it and my lines look more confident. And now let's erase that. If I go for 100 though, this is what it looks like. It is a bit slower, but my lines are actually following the pressure that I am using. So yeah, it's pretty good for calligraphy and whatnot, and or if you're doing your line art already, you can fix this in whichever stabilization factor you're comfortable with. Depending on the size, I've noticed my ranges would usually be around 35 onwards. But yeah, those are my comfortable numbers, and it does depend on the pen that you're using, how high your stabilization should be. Now, those are the things that you would usually use. The other things you can just play around, or if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I want to talk about layers now. Layers are very, very important. Why? Because layers, okay, let me just put this here real quickly so it's not bothering us. Okay. Alright, so for now, okay, layers. So layers are very important because it helps you be more organized, and that's one of more the advantages that you have for digital art. Unlike traditional art, if you put things together, which you would always do because there's no layer option, if you mess up, you cannot undo or just delete that layer that you messed up on. But for digital art, you have layers to help you create your art and change things if you want to change anything. Now, if you can see here, this is my layers. You have different layers already set up. Those are raster layers. I will discuss the vectors in another video. That's going to be a pretty long topic as well. So, for example, I have my line art on the first one, okay? And I set it up as a reference. You can see here? Let's set it up as reference. setting up a layer as reference will help you quite a lot, especially when it comes to, well, shading or putting in your flats or your flat colors. Why? Well, there is an option here on Clip Studio where if you go for your fill tool and you have it set as refer to other layers, and if you have your tool property, make sure that refer to multiple is checked and you choose reference layer. Okay, now with that said, all you need to do now is choose the color that you want. Let's go for red. Have a layer underneath your reference layer like this. Okay, let's delete that for now. This one. And then we are going to fill this thing out. And if you can see, it doesn't go over the line art because we set it as reference. Another thing is they have this paint unfilled area. So it works the same way. All you need to do is change it to refer multiple and then click on the reference layer and you can paint over the areas that are set as reference. So makes your life easier if you're doing flats. And if you want to, you can always go to the asset store and get things such as this tool that I will be using, and all I need to do is use this lasso tool and it fills out my flats. Okay, so what tool did I use? I used this tool from K96, and yes, they have different options to choose from. For me, I think I have this one, the blue one. This one right here. But I also have this, as you can see, I have check marks. So I've tested everything out. But for some reason, this one right here worked for me better than the rest. So you can always choose whatever it is that works for you. But yeah, see, that's how it works. All you need to do is set up a reference layer, put another layer at the bottom, and it fills the flats for you. Now, going back to Clip Studio. Let's talk about transparency for layers. Transparency for layers is really, really cool because it will give certain effects to your drawings. So for example, I'm going to create another raster layer. Okay, and we are going to make use of this. This is the clip to layer below, as per mentioned here when I hover over it. So this time I will clip this so that whatever it is that I want to do with it, or whatever color that I use to color it in, it will not go over the clipped drawing underneath. Okay, but I don't like this thing that I did. Okay, it just doesn't look good. So what do? I will change the transparency. So I have this set to normal currently. If I change this to multiply, I don't know why it looks the same. Okay, so it should actually give you a better result if you go for a multiply. So if you choose other, then of course the other transparency, it'll give you a different look. Okay, and one more thing is that you can adjust the opacity of the layer itself. So it's really, really good when you're playing around your shadows, your highlights, and whatnot. Especially me, I don't have it set standard just yet when it comes to shadows. It really depends on my mood. I like to change it up and whatnot. Okay, but for shadows, I often use multiply. Next is highlights. If you wanted to do highlights, same drill, create a new layer, clip to layer below. Now, what we need to do is change this to, most people like to use overlay. So let's go ahead and do that, and then I will switch to, let's just go for white, just to be safer now. And then I will draw over this. Okay, I'll change the brush though, so, whoopsie. So there you go. And it gives me this effect. If I change this to normal, this is what it would look like. If I change this to overlay, this is what it looks like. I often like to use glow dodge for certain scenarios, especially for the hair. I use glow dodge and add glow together, but oftentimes people recommend overlay or soft light. So it depends on your mood, or it depends on what you're trying to achieve. Please play around with the transparency, as it will definitely help you with the looks of your work. So that's it for now. I tried to cover as much for this video, but again, I can only cover specific topics per video, or else we'll be here for quite some time. So if you have any questions, please ask on the comments below, and let's go ahead and change the other scene. And that's about does it for our tutorial today. Thank you guys so much. I would try my best to upload tutorials every other day, except weekends. That's my off days, so I'll try to rest around those days. But again, if I have time, I'll upload as often as possible, explaining each and specific tool that you guys might encounter if you're new with Clip Studio. If you have any specific request, anything that you did not understand during the tutorial, please do not hesitate and leave a comment below and ask. I'm more than happy to help you guys out. Now, if you like this tutorial, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Click that notification bell button below to get notified for new videos. We also have a webtoon called a Dovetail. Please make sure to follow us on webcomics and webtoon. We do have alternate early releases for both. Yeah, I'm planning on making it a bit more collaborative. Details will follow. I do have other platforms, so please make sure to follow us on TikTok. I'm very active there as well, and I respond to comments. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye!